We're going to Doug in Florida. Doug, you're up.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Stephanie. And clearly, the Dos Equis most interesting person on the planet is being replaced by Stephanie as of today. It's ridiculous. Huge fan, huge. About a month ago, one of your Real and Raw posts, which is really all you ever do, drew me in, and it touched on some of the things that Scott had mentioned on the front end of this call, as far as the very, very like gut-wrenching trauma that you received during your early childhood and adolescent years. And I was reading this post and I'm like crying inside and probably outside. And I was thinking of this question, which is kind of like a Buddha quote that's holding on to anger is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. And a variation of that in my life too, which is something I try to be mindful of, is with forgiveness, you know, and not allowing the forgiveness. It's kind of like the same thing. So this is a pretty direct question, but you're like the most direct person maybe I've ever not met, but maybe met, like in this specific to your mom's severe psychological and physical abuse. I don't know how else to put it. Where does forgiveness factor into your journey, if at all?
So Doug, first of all, thank you so much for asking that question. You know, I did a lot of work on it. So I don't mind direct questions. You can really ask me anything. Here's the thing. Okay. She was so severely mentally ill. The more elevated I got, the more tears I had, the more screaming, like, how could you, like, I mean, how do you forget who my dad is? Like, just walk me through that. Like, it's just completely crazy. My siblings weren't my siblings. My nationality wasn't my nationality. My entire life was a lie. And then many, many years later, when she actually mentioned it, it came up. We were talking about something and it came up and she was like, you were like 8. Who cares? Like, it's not that big of a deal. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it was so stunning to me. And I was an adult and everything else. And I don't ever think it clicked with her, the damage that she did. And so I needed to figure out a way for me. And I will tell you, I had one of the most incredible therapists ever. Tiny little Italian woman from Brooklyn, who, if I came into her office and I was trying to BS her, unprepared to work, she would slam her book shut and go, get the hell out of my office. So there was like no joke with her. And we talked probably about a year for forgiveness. And my thing for forgiveness, Doug, was I thought if I forgave her, I had to invite her back. So I thought if I forgave her, then that means she was going to be a part of my life. And there was like no shot in hell that was happening. I didn't want her around my children. Anytime I drove into the city limits, even if not to see her, I became a different person. And after I got to know forgiveness is letting it go, how do I get to, what if she did the very best that she could? What if, no excuse, absolutely no excuse whatsoever for what I went through as a child, but what if that was her very best? What if something happened to her that caused that for her? It didn't negate my feelings. So I had to look at it from another perspective. I had to look at it from, I'm an adult, I have 4 kids. How am I going to be different to them? In life, this is my perspective. In life, every single person can be an example. That can be an example of somebody I never want to be like, or somebody that I choose to emulate. For her, I wanted nothing to do. There was nothing that I could pick from my childhood that I would go, oh, you know what? Maybe I would. Nothing. I have no attachment. I have no connection. I had no feeling towards her. And that was the part I had to get over. Me, who's one of anybody who would talk to you, I would help a pauper in the street. I would be the one bringing them food and clothes and being like, what can I do? And to have no feeling whatsoever. What kind of a person was I? What kind of a person was I that I had no feeling towards that person as she was dying? Because she's been past December will be 5 years. I had to forgive for me to let it go, but I never invited her back into my life. We never had a relationship. She was allowed a very finite relationship with my children when other people were around, but never on a basis where she could hurt or harm them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.